Hey there, everybody. Welcome back with the Platt and with my friend here, Laliette. We are Team Pocket, and this is the Team Pocket podcast. Hi there, Laliette. How you doing today?
Pretty good. Just enjoying this new game that came out now that we, are in our hideout here in New Zealand. Greytown, New Zealand, to be exact. I needed an address for my payment system, so 125 Greytown. If anybody wants to stop by to the Team Pocket hideout.
Yeah, we'll stop by and say hi. Just down the street from me as well. If you watch me a lot, you might know that I'm addicted to card games, and I've always played a lot of card games. It just kind of been, I've been playing Magic since I was in 6th grade, and I've been playing Pokemon, the video game, since I was 6 years old. So, and I like Marvel Snap. So it's like kind of everything just kind of came together where I've been really excited for this. But Laliette, what is your history with card games and Pokemon?
Sure. So card games are my favorite genre, and I started playing Pokemon way back when I was a kid, like everybody else. Won like a state championship, which means absolutely nothing when you're 9, and then jumped back into the game in my early 20s and played the World Circuit for a little bit, and got this hat over at Worlds. Was like a top 30 ELO player for a little bit before I dropped out of playing altogether. But I have a lot of familiarity with a lot of these cards, and my favorite thing about this game I did not think I was going to like this game that much, is the format is so dialed down in power compared to like what modern Pokemon looks like, that it's like a return to that 1999 through 2002 kind of window of Pokemon where you can use stage 2s, and there were no EXs back then, but you can kind of balance the power between the stage 2s, stage 1s, and the EXs.
I'm having a lot of fun with that aspect. One, if you guys don't know, me and Laliette used to play Dragon Quest TAC together. We had a podcast on the channel, and we just did some videos back in the day. So we're not complete strangers here. But yeah, I found out Laliette had played Pokemon semi-competitively. Well, competitively, but at the Worlds and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? We already know each other. Let's go ahead and do some videos together. But to continue on with what you were saying, like, I absolutely love the overall power level. So when I tried to jump back into Pokemon a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago, it was something like when Live came out, or I was just playing on their online thing, everything was like, I don't think it's called EX. I think it's called like GX or something. It was all just like Pokemon like Charizard that were like counted as basic Pokemon with huge HP pools, even though they're not basic Pokemon. They're stage 2 Pokemon, right? That's like, or stage 3? I don't know. Whatever. Basic stage 1, stage 2, I think is how it goes. And so I didn't really, to me, that felt like not what Pokemon was. To me, it was Pokemon is you evolve your Pokemon, or you use like certain like Electabuzz, things that didn't evolve, Pinsir, things that didn't evolve, I really liked. But so yeah, like you said, this feels like they're coming back to a way lower power level, which is, for me, a lot of fun. So
Absolutely.
we wanted to talk.
The biggest thing with the power level is, even when I was playing like during the early EX days in like the mid 2010s, it started reaching a point where it was you either kill somebody in 2 hits or you kill them in 1 hit, and that was like the only real way to play the game. So if you did not do at least half of the damage of a Pokemon as a non-EX, or the full damage as an EX, then you weren't a viable card, which made it so that there was only like 5% of cards printed that were remotely viable. And now it feels like, I would say, over half of these cards are currently viable.
Yeah, for sure. And I like it, most of the cards have there are certain colors that are better than others, but a lot of them will have like, all right, here's a basic that for 1 energy can hit, has 70 HP, can hit for 30. They'll have like a similar stat line for energy costs across all the colors, and a lot of them are viable. And I kind of like that as well. Like, there's so much simplicity actually in this set that they have a lot. We've seen Pokemon where it can go. They have a lot of design space that they can mess with here. So I actually am really happy with just the super, I won't call it watered down, but I would say a super drop in the overall power level at the start of the game, because honestly, it just, like, it's been fun. It is a little simple, but actually I think there's like an art in sense of finding the most powerful deck possible when there is such a like low power level. Like little differences of like this attack does 30 versus this attack does 40 is a very big difference in a set where there's just not that much. The lowest power level and the highest power level aren't that far apart.
Exactly. And it's one of those things where like there are simple games, like chess is a simple game to learn, but it does not mean that there's not complex iterations of ways, to use it. I think rock, paper, scissors is probably closer, this is more towards the rock, paper, scissors end, but rock, paper, scissors is not an easy game to play. So it's
Yes.
like, I can't really beat you at rock, paper, scissors a majority of the time because, there's so much mental element to it. And I feel like the game right now is in a very similar place where there's a lot of opportunity to grow, but the current game is simple enough to learn, but complex enough to allow a lot of diversity. And also everybody's collections are going to look very different, which means, as of right now, within the first week, there is no meta decks unless you're just wailing.
I think it's also super important. Like, I know some people don't like coin flips in card games. Like, in Pokemon is the king of coin flips, but I actually think there's the right level. There's not that many cards that flip coins, and I think it adds a relevant amount of variance where some of the best cards in the game are cards that are going to flip some coins. And if they were slightly more consistent, the whole meta would be completely broken. I feel like it would just be like, we'll talk about it more in a little bit, but like Misty is a very powerful card. And if it was like add 1 energy and then flip a coin for every extra energy, it would be like completely broken. The whole game would be warped around it. So I like that even the best cards in the game could be kind of broken, but still sometimes they're just bad because they didn't do anything at all, Anyway, yeah. So there was something you wanted to talk about. You wanted to talk about first pack matters. I know this, but I don't know the full context of it. I haven't done that much research. I've mostly just been playing the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're first offered when you first load into the game a choice of the 3 packs that exist in the game, which is Mewtwo, Charizard, and Pikachu. And you're going to open your first pack and you're going to get an EX, and it's going to be the same EX every time. So it's like, what are the EXs for each of those 3 packs? So Mewtwo is going to get you a Marowak EX, which I believe is what me and Platt both picked as our first pack.
Yes.
If you pick Charizard, you're going to get an Executor EX, which is also a very good card. I don't know if it's better, but it's very good. And then the third option is the Pikachu, which is going to give you, I'm blanking actually off the top of my head, but it was not a very good EX.
So which is the best of the EXs, do you think?
I would say Marowak is like A1, and then Charizard is A2. It really just depends on what type you prefer, because they're both excellent cards. One requires a coin flip and has a much higher damage ceiling in Marowak, who can do 0 damage if you get 2 tails, and if you get 2 heads, it does 160. But if you want the more consistent card, you can get the Executor EX, which does 40 for 1 energy, but then can do 80. Is that on a coin flip, I believe?
It is on a coin flip. It always does 40, and then if you flip a coin and you get it, or it's heads, then it's 80 damage instead. Yeah, this card the Executor has felt like the strongest to me overall, just because of the 1 energy requirement. Like you could put Execute as your starter turn, your first attack, you could be coming in with Tropical Swing. It's a more consistent card with, I think, slightly higher HP than Marowak. I think he has 160 HP as opposed to 140. So overall, I feel a little bit stronger against them. However, as someone that started with Marowak and they get a bonus 20 damage against me every time they attack, it probably is slightly biased as well. Marowak's high damage potential allows him to like one-shot EX Pokemon if you get the 33% chance.
Yes, and it very matters like what are you going to use this card for. So if you're going to play like offline, Marowak it allows you to do the over 100 damage missions on like I'm not sure which of the tiers, but there's like 4 or 5 tiers of difficulty, and at one point they say you need to do at least 100 damage. Doesn't matter with what type. Marowak can get you there every time as long as you get 2 heads. So that's kind of nice, while Executor will never get you there. And the balancing aspect, right? Marowak has 20 less HP, and Cubone has 20 more HP than the 40 HP Execute. So Execute is a little bit... You
got to be careful with that Execute. He might just get slapped before you even have a chance to use him. Like if someone pulls out a Blaine on you, like your whole game plan is suddenly toast. So you got to be careful. But then again, if I see that they're using Fire Bench, well, but then again, you put them out. You can't just, you have to spend an energy to retreat on turn 1. No, yeah, that is scary. That low HP is very scary. So, the first pack matters. You also get, I'm sorry, there's full art cards, right? Do you remember the full art cards that you get?
The full art starters, and I don't know which one goes with which one. Well, I can tell you Bulbasaur comes with Mewtwo, because that's what I did.
Got it. Well, then Charmander has to come from Charizard.
And Charmander does come with Charizard, so that kind of automatically kind of solves the problem. The cool thing about these being guaranteed in your first, what is that called?
Wonder Pick.
Wonder Picks, is that when you first join the game, you're not going to have any friends. So these Wonder Picks, all 3 starters, are going to pop up in your Wonder Picks pretty often, which is really cool because it gives you a chance to get all 3 of the full arts.
Yeah, and it's they look really good, man. They're just fun cards. The art in this game is Pokemon. Okay, Magic has my favorite art from an artistic standpoint. Like, I just love the gritty darkness of like how crazy Magic cards can get. But from a willing to just do whatever the hell you want, Pokemon is my favorite because Magic has like a look, but Pokemon doesn't have a look in a lot of ways. They'll just have characters that are made out of yarn. They'll have characters that are from comic books. They'll have characters that are claymation. There are cards that have a look, but like they will go crazy with cards, like absolutely just go off the wall. So it's so fun that they're willing to just go crazy with it. Pokemon, no other game does that, I feel like, quite as good as Pokemon, where they just go, it's like in Magic the Gathering, these would be $100 secret layer drops. Like they do secret layer drops with like special art variants. These are just like part of their normal printings. They just have fun with it. But so we now know first pack matters. It affects the first EX you're gonna get. It affects your first starter full art. But okay, actually talking about the game now, something that I haven't played that much Pokemon, but you've played a lot. What are the major rule changes from normal Pokemon to Pocket?
So like the ones that are super obvious, there's no energy in your deck, so that really changes everything. We haven't quite figured out the energy, like if you use a multicolor deck, how that works, but it will give you at some rate, not super consistent in my experience, both of those colors, and it seems to be weighted, but we don't really know. One energy per turn, no double colorless. If
it's not weighted, I don't see how 3-color decks are viable ever, because it's too rare. It would be too hard to get the 1 on 3. But if you could do, I don't know, if your Pokemon are on a 5-5-5 spread and it's a 1 out of 3, that sucks. But if you could do a 1-1-7 spread or something like that, or 1-1-8, and that 8 is like water, and then you have an 80% chance to get water or something like that. Like if it's weighted in some way, you could do an interesting deck building thing. If it's completely random, it's gonna be so hard to make 3-color decks, which I don't know if you've tried, but they'll allow you to make up to 3 colors in a deck. You can't do 4 or 5. After you try to add 3 different colors of Pokemon, it'll be like 3 is the max. So that's as high as they'll let you go. But I'm even worried about dual color decks if it's completely random. Because there's just no energy problems in mono, right? When you have monocolor, you don't have to worry about it. Once you add a second color, you need to consider a lot of stuff in terms of how many white costs your Pokemon has, like color lists. It just is a huge thing. Sorry, but continue. What else is different about Pocket besides the energy system?
Even before moving on, like just the question of how the power system works with energy is so complex, because it's like, does it matter if it is weighted? How many of those symbols are on your cards? So like, if you put something in that is a psychic Pokemon that only uses colorless, is it still going to add psychic into your deck? I would assume yes, but like if it didn't, then that would change the way you would build these 3-color decks, etc.
100. I love, I could look at like Gengar and see 3 psychic, and I'm like, he's never going in a 2-color deck. I just like, he can go in a 2-color deck, but maybe 1 out of 3 games he'll actually be usable, right? 2 out of 3 games you're going to draw him, and by turn 5 you're not going to have 3 energy on him, and it's like, why is he even in your deck, right? So it's a really fun way that they could, if they do it right, it's a really fun way to balance Pokemon where you can't just do good stuff incorporated. You can't just do a 4 Psychic Mewtwo and a 4 Electric Pikachu in the same deck, just absolutely blowing everything up. So it's a good way to balance decks as long as they print the right cards for it.
And that is really cool, because in the real card game, you can get away with that no problem. So like, when I competed in Worlds, I used a Evolutions Raichu deck, which used like almost all of the typings, and I was able just to kind of hit for weakness with everything. And majority of those evolutions were attacking for like 1 colored energy, and then you had like energy, rainbow energy, that could be anything. And yeah, it was very hard to balance. Like, you can print really powerful cards now in different colors, and knowing that if you make them all the same energy type, it's going to be very hard for people to combine them.
Yeah, and so it's going to limit your deck building by putting, like, if I put Gengar EX, because I love this card, suddenly, because you can't use supporters, that's a pretty powerful ability just to get on the board. But now it's like my deck how I can build my deck gets narrowed so far, because I don't ever want to add a fighting Pokemon to try to cover weaknesses or anything, because it just like, it's going to make him unusable.
Yeah, absolutely. So that covers like the energy piece. There's 20 cards in the deck, which sounds like a much smaller deck, right? It's 1/3 the size of the normal Pokemon deck. But in your normal Pokemon deck, usually almost 1/3 of your deck or more, depending on who you are, but is energy, right? Mm-hmm. So now that you don't have those energy, normally I like to play with like 40 to 43 non-energy cards in a 60 card deck. So now instead you're playing with 20 non. So it's really something closer to like half the size of the deck with more reliable energy when you use a monocolor deck, right? It's very reliable. You don't have to worry about drawing the energy. Something that I hate about Magic, right, is getting land screwed. So I really enjoy that we have a guaranteed energy drop. So with those 2 basic ones out of the way, there's no prizes. So not everybody who's played Pokemon would notice, but your prizes are taken out of your deck. So there's always this guessing game. So to be really good at the highest level of Pokemon, you have to be able to search through your deck very quickly, like in like 30 seconds or so, and be able to name all 6 of the Pokemon that are prized or cards, so that you know what you don't have to work with while you try to battle. In this game, you don't have to worry. All the cards are in there guaranteed, and there's a limit of 2 copies instead of 4, which definitely changes a lot of the math on things. So it's like, draw 2 cards is called Bill in regular Pokemon. Mm-hmm. The card is, don't get me wrong, it's not bad, but as a supporter, it's not playable.
Because you only get 1 supporter a turn.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So in this game, Professor is probably the best card in the game.
I mean, it kind of reads like, if you wanted to move it to normal Pokemon, it kind of reads as draw 6, right? Because you get to draw still the same percentage of your deck, basically.
And you don't have to discard, right? So in the normal game, that card would be like discard your hand, draw 7, which is drawing 1 more card, of course, but you're allowed now to keep whatever resources you have to be able to combo with the 2 cards you draw. And it draws 10% of your deck, which draw 6 would be 10% of your deck, right? So yeah, it's very comparable.
It's a card that I think everyone should probably just, like, if you haven't gone into the shop and picked up, like, you should just make sure you're picking up 2 Professor's Research. Now, I have picked up multiple, and I flared them both out, so I bought like 8 copies to flare them out, because right now, since this is the most powerful card I think in the game, probably, besides maybe a few other very specific supporters and other situations, but for the most part, this is going to be a card that I'm going to want 2 of in every deck for until they power creep it, until they make this a trainer or, a non-supporter card. I'm assuming I'm going to want this. So make sure you're picking up that card.
Yeah. And Pokeball, right? Those are the 2 where it's like, I can't imagine building a deck that's viable without 2 of both of those.
Yeah, 2 Pokeballs, 2 Professor Research. And if you're like me and you thought Pokeball sucked, you're just thinking about it wrong. You're thinking that it sucks to get a bunch of basics in your hand. You're not calculating how important deck thinning is in a 20 card deck. Where now it's like, if let's say you really need to draw a potion or something like that, or you need to draw your whatever EX or whatever, just by playing Pokeball, you're increasing the odds of drawing your actual good cards, because you're getting the bad draws out of your deck. You're getting 2 of your worst draws possible out of your deck. And yeah, you're not running that many basics, but you're still going to be basics in your deck for most of the game. So Pokeball is ridiculously good.
Absolutely. And you're going to get in a scenario a lot where you have like 10 or 8 cards left and you're not doing well, but if you hit one of 2 or 3 cards, you're going to win the game. And playing that now makes it so instead of it being 2 or 3 out of 10, now it's 2 or 3 out of 9, which, you know, over time, it just is going to really scale up your win percentage by thinning the deck. I'm just repeating exactly what you said.
Yeah. No, but I mean, that's super important is like in an individual game, you may not notice it, but it's like in Marvel Snap, they had this big, basically, there's this game called America Chavez that basically makes it so your 12 card deck is an 11 card deck. Cause on turn 6, you always draw it. But some people were like, yeah, but I didn't draw my out on turn 6. Instead, I drew America Chavez when I could have drawn the other card. It's like, yes, sometimes it'll feel bad if you draw a Pokeball and it doesn't do anything or something like that, but it just maths out. It just, over the course of 10 games, 100 games, it's always going to increase your win percentage by maybe 1 or 2%, something like that. But I mean, most cards in the game aren't going to increase your win percentage by that much, by just running them for free.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about these items and supporters is they're so much more valuable than your Pokemon because they go into multiple decks and they're kind of, staples of what you're going to be playing in like every deck. So I would definitely, as you do your missions, you're going to have excess shop points from not only doing missions but getting likes. Please always send thanks to everybody, right?
Yes, yes.
their stuff when you go to, I can't remember what it's called, but you can go look at other people's cards. You can just click a bunch of likes. You're just giving people shop points. I like to do that every once in a while. So you're going to have extra shop points. Pick up 2 copies of all of those, but that's not something you have to do until after you've gotten further along. So back to, I get distracted easily. So back to the rules. So there's no prizes, which also means that there's no additional resource you get when you knock out a Pokemon, right? So that's another thing. So normally you draw a card essentially, right? When you knock out a Pokemon, or draw 2 when you knock out an EX. So that doesn't happen, which actually kind of stabilizes the tempo. Because tempo in this game is kind of everything.
It is interesting. Yeah, you're in normal Pokemon, you are rewarded with resources for killing an opponent. That's a double victory. Normally you would think of like you spend resources to kill a Pokemon, but it's progressing your win condition because you need to draw all your prizes to win. It's giving you resources and it's lowering their threat because any energy on that card was wasted. Yeah, it feels like it inherently not. And sometimes your one-ofs are in there. I hate the prize system. I think it was like the worst part of Pokemon. So I love this. I'm sorry, continue with what you were saying.
Yeah, no, you're right. And sometimes you have a one-up and you lose the matchup because that's the only way you could win. So another thing that's different, you can't get decked out in this game, which I really didn't know until it just came up. I was playing one of my first online games. Somebody played red card, which is a card that makes you shuffle your hand, draw 3. I had 1 card in my hand, 2 in the deck. It drew my entire deck. And I was like, oh no, he's just going to pass and then I'm going to win. He decided to attack me and I was like, whatever, and now he's going to win. Nope, it just said you can no longer draw a card because you're out of cards in your deck. And you just keep playing the game. That's awesome, because with a small deck like that, the cards that are very powerful are the deck thinning cards, the draw 2 cards, etc. And you really want to be able to see all your deck because you can only have 2 copies of things. So if you're playing a stage 2, you're going to have 2 basics, 2 stage 1s, and then 2 of the stage 2s. That's 6 cards in your deck. That's 30% of your deck is those cards. So you would like to be able to get to the point where you can see your Charizard, because whether you like it or not, there's only 2 Charizards in that deck, and they could be the very bottom 2 cards.
And it's kind of fun because Hearthstone solved it in a different way, but this game solved, because the reason you don't lose, or the reason you don't have to lose, probably because they thought it felt bad, but normally you would have to make that a lose state because the game would be a stalemate, right? But you have infinite energy resources. You'll always get an energy every turn, so you don't need to lose the game. And because the win condition of Pokemon is the minions, Hearthstone had to introduce fatigue because all the minions could die and everyone could be staring at each other. But in this game, the minions are the win conditions and the loss conditions. If you don't have any more minions, you automatically lose. And so if you'll always be able to reach a victor through combat, even if you're both out of cards, which I really, really like, that you're always going to end with creature combat is going to decide the factor. There's not, although I like mill strategies. I hope they had some sort of mill strategy, even if it just burns their resources or something, because I love that mechanic, but probably not in a 20 card deck. It's probably toxic as hell. But I love that they solved, I think they saw that decking wasn't a problem, and they're like, well, let's just remove it. No one likes losing to getting decked, right? Especially when you have the tempo and you're winning, and then suddenly you can't draw cards and you lose, even though you would have won. So I think they were really smart to actually take out that loss condition.
I agree. I think it would have made it so that there would have been a much higher skill cap on when to play your draw cards. But that's just not something that I want to be part of the game. You know what I mean? I don't want to have these little meta games of the games, just like with the prizing, right? That was a skill you had to know what was prized, and you needed to know how much to draw to not get decked out. Now those two things are gone, making the game way more accessible to way more people. I just think it's strictly a W.
So a positive I want to state really quick is I like it when games are challenging. I like skill challenging games, but there's some skills I don't like being challenged. Like in Hearthstone, in Pokemon, I don't like deck tracking necessarily. I don't like hand tracking. Magic Arena solved this. If you've had a card revealed to you by an opponent, you'll always be able to see that card in their hand. It'll be revealed. If you know what the top of their deck is, or you should know because they revealed it in some way, you don't need to remember it. It'll just show you. So I like that. When it comes to the prize card thing, I don't need to have a notepad with me, because I have a really bad memory, a short-term memory for that kind of stuff. And I always feel like I'm at a disadvantage in like games that test that skill. I always fail. So the fact that that kind of skill isn't being tested as much here anymore, there will still be an aspect of deck tracking, I'm sure, with if you just know what a meta deck is and you see their first card, is like, all right, was that their first or second copy of that card? That's not as hard, but yeah, the prize card thing, I hate that system for like 6 reasons, and I'm just happy it's gone. But really quick to move on to the next topic, I just wanted to give thoughts on the Pokemon rules in general, because I haven't been that into Pokemon. And so one of the very first things that I noticed that I did not expect, because when I played the Pokemon TCG on the Game Boy, for me, it was all about putting I kind of played every battle the same way. I'd put something like a Snorlax down, and then the AI would attack him for 7 turns and never kill him, or then they would eventually kill him. And meanwhile, I would have a Charizard, and I would have like 10 energy on my Charizard. I'd switch him in, then he'd sweep, right? Which is still like, I guess it could be a strategy against AI here. But what I didn't expect is how tempo oriented this game would be. It's very tempo oriented, because like the first Pokemon, the earlier a Pokemon comes online and the earlier you can kill one of their Pokemon, like the better. Because if you kill something of theirs that has any energy attached to it, suddenly the energy is hard to come by in this game. There are a few ways to cheat it, but it's almost strictly restricted by how many turns you have. So if someone has 3 energy on a Pokemon and you're able to sneak in a way to kill it, and now suddenly they have 3 less energy than you on their bench in their active Pokemon slot, that's a huge advantage moving forward. So if you can get a Pokemon up early and start swinging hard, you put the pressure on them, it could be really hard, because I've had so many games where I have like Mewtwo and I have 2 energy on him, but they kill my Pokemon and I have to send him out, and he won't be able to do an attack because he needs 4 energy and he's only going to go up to 3, and so he's just getting smacked, so he's going to lose over 2 rounds instead of just winning. So that was one thing I was surprised by Pokemon, but I would like to hear kind of your thoughts on overall Pokemon strategy.
Yeah, well, I enjoy the way that this game implements strategy more, because like you said, the short-term memory features and the tracking, to me, like, it's not like those aren't strategic things, but the real strategic things is like, what attack am I going to use? What card in my hand am I going to use? Where am I going to put my energy? Like, these are the fundamentals of Pokemon when we were kids that we learned, and there's a lot of nostalgia with those features. So I think like boiling the game back down to focus more on those features is very rewarding. And the thing is, you can jump into this game if you have not played since 1999, and you can pick up the game really fast. You know what I mean? Because you're like, all of these type of attacks, 1 energy, 40 damage. Like, there's not a ton of text on these cards, which There will be more over time, right?
Yes,
But
of course.
what that does is it makes a great level of accessibility, and it just makes it so that your macro decisions matter much more than your micro decisions. Um, so when you're talking about your strategy you did with your Snorlax, that is still very viable in this game if you're just willing to let it die and you're using some big Pokemon that need lots of energies to do lots of damage. That is a perfectly viable strategy. Um, because of that, that's why Sabrina is so ridiculously powerful. So I don't know if you have a Sabrina, but you can definitely click on and look at. So she forces your opponent to change their active Pokemon. So even if they have 3 bench Pokemon, they now only have 3 choices. And, of course, we could always say this gives your opponent the option to make a mistake, but a lot of the times you want to use this card where there is no good move they can make, right? So they have, 3 Pokemon out. 1 Pokemon's already been damaged on the bench. The other Pokemon has energy they've been loading up on it, but you can one-shot it. And the Pokemon that's up in front is what they're just trying to eat a bunch of damage, and they don't care about that Pokemon. Now they have to either let you kill the weak Pokemon, which is probably what they will do, or they have to bring up their Pokemon that they just put 3 energy on, and then you're going to either 1 or 2 shot it, and that's not something they want either. So you can just get people into a pickle,
This feels like one of the most quintessential one of cards I think I've seen in the game. I don't think I almost ever want to run 2 of these, because for me it's always going to be when you use this you get them, and that's like a trap card. You win the game after you use this. They're so far on the back foot because they weren't expecting it. And I don't feel like I need 2 of these cards almost ever, but it feels like I always want to have this in the toolkit as like a threat to just do something unlike any other card can do. Besides, unless you're running Pidgeotto, I guess, or Pidgeot, but then you're running a stage 2. That's not easy to do, but he could do it every turn.
Yes,
and it's also
great.
Sorry, continue.
Oh, Pidgeot's great, but it's one of those things where it's not a great attacker, so it's 6 cards to put in your deck to be able to get that every turn option, and you're going to win against people who can't deal with retreating, but most decks should be running 2 of the X speed, and they should be built in a way where they can kind of deal with the idea of having to retreat often.
And I want to say the weakest part about Pidgeot as opposed to Sabrina is Pidgeot is a face-up threat. There is no surprise value in Pidgeot. They know you're capable. Once they see Pidgey, they know that a Pidgeot is going to come down at some point, because you're not running Pidgey without Pidgeot, probably, if you're on ladder. Or there's no ladder, but if you're doing PvP. Whereas Sabrina, they don't see it until you activate it, and then they're boned. But we are about halfway through the podcast, so I believe we have to talk about our sponsor here, Laliette.
Yes. Before we do that, I just really quick wanted to say, I do think that Sabrina is absolutely a 2 of in every single deck. I just think it's that powerful. And you might not need to use it twice, but you always want to have one in your hand. And when there's 20 cards in the deck, and you usually probably see about 15 of them, you just want to make sure you always see a Sabrina.
So
with that said, let's go ahead and hit our sponsor. Today, our sponsor is Mr. Mime's Gloves. So if you've ever found the need to be able to, create barriers out of nowhere, or, build a glass house that people can't throw stones at, then we recommend to you Mr. Mime's Gloves. All right, these gloves will help you climb walls. They have the little suction cups on the fingers. They are sourced from real Mr. Mimes. We went to the Safari Zone and we harvested these from Mr. Mimes. We put them down, euthanized them very, in a way that was...
We're not allowed to talk
humane.
about it, but let's just say Team Pocket has a very humane way of
Yes.
getting these gloves, okay?
Team Pocket does not accept any responsibility for anything that will happen to you while using Mr. Mime's gloves. If you're accused of poaching or anything else, then we have no legal liability. But if you would like on the down low, an opportunity to get some of these gloves, these very rare items, Team Pocket is the place to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, T Pocket, for supporting this podcast. Use code Team Pocket at checkout, and that will get you 10% off your very first order of Mime Gloves. Keep in mind, it is called Mime Gloves, but you get 1. So you might want to put in a couple orders there just to make sure. If you buy at least 10, they're guaranteed to come from the same Mr. Mime.
That's right. And you'd be surprised, they have different hand sizes. All right. So let's return to the agenda. That was a fun little sideshow. What do you have so far in the game that you've seen that's been really nostalgic, that's been like Easter egg-ish?
Okay, so everyone knows now. I'll let you talk about the Mew, but I don't know if I would call it Easter egg, but my goodness, when you say the word nostalgia, I'm going to show this in game really quick. Nothing has hit me harder than this basic Pikachu. In fact, I don't even know if there's any other original artwork in the game. Maybe there is, but this is the original Pikachu that I opened when I was a child, you know, when I was collecting Pokemon cards. Fat Pikachu. Fat, washed out Pikachu, bro. This guy was a chump always. He's just got Gnaw for 20 damage and no other text on the card. I mean, I think that this is not exactly right. Like, I think weaknesses were ×2 at a point early in Pokemon. But
all of Pokemon, that's actually one of the big changes that I forgot to mention.
Got it. Well, I like the this is not as I like that the whole meta is, if something Psychic is good, it doesn't mean everything that's weak to Psychic is automatically unusable. But I am in love with this card. Like, I'm going to pull so many of them, and I'm going to flare it up. It's only available in the genetic Apex Pikachu. Quick side note, you could look down beneath any card in the game. Like, let's say it's like, I don't have 122. Well, how do I get 122? You can see you get it in these packs. So that is a way to check any specific card. What other Easter eggs do you know about?
So one that I found was really fun. I don't know if you have a Venonat, but Venonat,
what kind of star version or a regular Venonat?
Nope, just a regular old Venonat. My daughter pointed this out today when looking through my collection. It is a grass Pokemon.
Let's take a look. Number... No, I
there
do not...
it is to the left.
Oh, sorry. Venonat, there we go. Oh, perfect. It's looking at a Snorlax's foot.
And if you've ever played the original red, blue, whatever you played, you know, you will get to a point after Lavender Town or somewhere around there when there's a Snorlax blocked in the road and you can't get through unless you get the Pokeflute. And it's on, like, you know, a little bridge. And this is the bridge. And, you know, this Venonat looks like it's very, you know, surprised to see the sleeping Snorlax here. And if you had the full art Snorlax, you're going to see from the opposite angle the entire Snorlax sleeping. There's a Weeping Bell behind it, there's an Oddish behind it, and it shows the other branches of this weird bridge system that existed in the game in blue.
That's so fun. So what about, how about this Mew? How do we get the Mew? I don't have it, so I can't actually show you guys, but you've probably seen it on more popular videos.
Yeah, absolutely, and hopefully you know, but the achievement says to collect all original 150 Pokemon. So it seems like you have to collect the base version or the full art version of every single one of the 150 original Pokemon. Now, whether that is actually how it works or whether you need to get all 226 cards, I'm not positive. But when the person who did it, they were missing a full art and they got it, so it probably is all 226 cards from when I watched the video. But it's interesting that the achievement says collect all 150 original Pokemon.
Okay, so it might be a little unclear there. Is there any other Easter eggs, or is that kind of it for that part?
The only other one that I thought was kind of cool for anyone who's played the video games is the paid Pikachu off of the Battle Pass.
I do have that.
Which does have a little box that it's guarding, and I don't know why it's an angry Pikachu, because I've never seen such aggressive...
This is the angriest Pikachu I've seen. This is Pikachu after he lost all that weight. He was on roids or something, you know?
This is Pikachu in Mewtwo Returns when Ash is on the ground bleeding and the Fury comes over him. This is that Pikachu. So in this little box, we have a few things. You can very easily see a Pokédex on the very bottom, some Pokeballs, a fishing rod, very staples, a lantern that you would use in the caves, a Pokeflute to get rid of that, you know, darn Snorlax, a Clefairy doll, which I don't remember what you do with it, but I remember the Pokemon.
It does. It's like substitute, right? In Pokemon, the video games, I think. Oh, I think Clefairy doll lets you. Is it like switch? It lets you switch out your bench Pokemon. Maybe, you know what, you're right. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't remember. I get the card game and the video games mixed up.
I
But
think you're right. I think it's the original substitute in like the very first game. That's what I would have said, but I just wasn't confident enough. But it is a non-prize card from the original set. It had like 30 or something HP, and it just stood there. And when you knocked it out, you didn't lose a prize, so you could just stall with it.
awesome. And they got a potion and a high potion here as well. It might be I think it's a high potion. I think orange is the high potion. No great balls.
Yeah, so
I really wish there was like one great ball or an ultra ball here. But
even
it's
the
right.
gold master ball, like I'd be happy with. Like,
And it's like an Excel bike, you know, one of the bikes. There's always a bike in the game. So this is very reminiscent of like an old Pokemon game. Maybe what version do you think this is? Do you think this is Pokemon Yellow? I think you get all these items in Pokemon Yellow.
it would make sense. And Pikachu is the main character of Pokemon Yellow.
And I actually don't know about the landscape. Like this could be, it feels a little generic to me, where it could be almost anywhere on your adventure. But I bet this map tells you exactly what version it is. I just am not knowledgeable enough of the maps. It looks like Italy to me, you know? So, and I'm sure it's not. All right. So one thing I actually do want to dedicate some time to is, you know, then maybe the next, I'm saying this for us. That way I kind of know when to move on, is meta. What do we think is good? What color, what do we think is good? Why do we think it's good? And if we think multicolor decks are viable, or if it's going to be mostly a monocolor kind of meta. And again, we're speculating. No one has like top tier meta decks because no one has all the cards. It's super early in the game, but there are some clear outliers, and I'm sure things will develop, but I'm kind of interested what your thoughts are. What is the best stuff in the game right now that you could be doing, do you think?
Yeah, so there's some very powerful cards. So you know, I don't know how the deck lists look, etc. But Pikachu EX, which I don't have, and I've tried, almost every pack I open is a Pikachu pack. I think is one of the strongest cards in the game, because for 2, it has 120 HP, which is low for an EX, but for 2 lightning energy, it does 30 times the number of bench Pokemon, which is 90. So 2 for 90 is fantastic. And you can get that going really fast if you go second.
I want to state, like, the reason why I think this card is so powerful, if I read this card, it doesn't sound that powerful, because I could look at other cards and see that they're more powerful in certain ways. But this card is a tempo machine, man. This thing just goes so hard, so fast, especially because it's a basic Pokemon as well. Like, I don't think there's another basic, maybe, I mean, Mewtwo is a basic Pokemon, but no one's hitting for 90 damage as a basic Pokemon on turn 2. Like, this guy, you need to have the bench Pokemon. If they have some like anti-bench play, which is very, very rare currently, there's a little bit, but not much. I mean, this guy just comes down, and if you're facing the AI and they flip up their first basic and it's EX Pikachu, and you got your fucking Rattata that does 20 damage, you're like, well, what the fuck do I do this game, bro? I can't do anything. So EX Pikachu feels like, when I faced them, I understood the power that is EX Pikachu, man. I lost so many times.
And the other thing is, there's no counterplay in the setup, right? So that you can play all 3 of your bench Pokemon in the setup, which you might not have them, but if you did have them, you could just lay down 4 Pokemon, and now there is no counterplay to that until the first attack, or until the first Pokemon is knocked out.
Yeah, there's like, there are some Pokemon that can attack bench, but there's not that many. And they do like 30 damage. They're not like one shot a low bench Pokemon. Even like, I think it does like 30 damage max. I think it's like this dog here does like 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. There is a Greninja, I think, in the game as well, that could do 20 damage.
20.
But it's it is an energy, or sorry, it is an ability, so it can do it every turn for free. So you can kind of be doing 2 things at once. But like, he's also a water type, you know, so he's probably taken 110 damage from that Pikachu. So like, even one of the better cards against him is actually dog water against him. So another card I want to point out,
stage 2. By the time you get the stage 2 up, Pikachu's already kind of done Pikachu's thing.
Yeah, he's already won, because he's already done 360 damage over 5 turns, you know.
Yeah, it can get crazy. And of course, you don't always start with Pikachu, and you have to play other basics because you need to fill the bench. But Pikachu has the ability on the high end just to win games that the opponent doesn't get to play.
Okay, I'm going to show you two things. But one, another card that I want to call out that I think is being kind of insane currently is, you already talked about Sabrina, so I'm going to show Misty. Misty is, I think, the only reason Misty may not be good right now is if Pikachu is so good that it's suicide to play water types. But I don't think that's going to be the case, because I think that you will be able to, I don't think every water type is weak to electricity. I bet there's a little bit of diversity if we looked up here, maybe.
Yeah, they split it in half with really like all the typings. They've done a good job with balance.
So like a lot of these are weak to steel as well. So something like, even like Garrett, like Hyper Beam is pretty rough. So what does Misty do? Misty, you flip coins until you hit tails. For every heads, you attach a water energy. This is one of like 3 cards that allow you to generate extra energy. There's maybe more, maybe there's closer to 10 if I had the whole collection, but there's very few cards that actually allow you to put extra energy on. And I'm pretty sure this is the only card that allows you to potentially put 2, 3, 4 energy on if you're lucky. So you could absolutely, like, I feel like this card reads 50% of the time, it's one of the greatest cards in the game. 25% of the time, you instantly win the game, you know, and 25% of the time, it does, or it doesn't do anything, right? Like sometimes you lose that 50-50 and it doesn't do anything. That other 50%, it's insane. You get 2 heads in a row, suddenly you're almost guaranteed to win, I feel like, because you have such a big tempo advantage.
I think you nailed it. Every deck that uses water, whether it's mono or dual, you're going to use this. It targets any water Pokemon, while a majority of these cards like Lieutenant Surge and like Brock are going to target 2 specific Pokemon lines that you have to play. And honestly, I don't think they're that good. So like Golem, stage 2, does 150, takes 50 damage to itself. It's playable, don't get me wrong, but you can't use that on a different Pokemon. Say you really would like to put all that energy onto Machamp. You can't. And with Lieutenant Surge, it's even worse, because your 2 options are Raichu, who discards all 3 of its energy when it attacks. Currently, we could get a better Raichu. Or you're going to get Electro Buzz, who just does a low amount of damage.
So right now, for me, the best color is clearly water, because Misty, I think, is the most powerful. And you don't need to run Psychic to run Sabrina. I think she's like the Psychic supporter. However, it has no connection to that typing, right? So Misty, I think, makes water the most powerful color because it allows you to cheat. The other characters that allow you to cheat, I think their issue right now is that they're just too narrow. Not like it doesn't add this is any water Pokemon. You could pick Greninja, you could pick any good water Pokemon. This has to be specifically a Golem or an Onix, and this has to be specifically a Raichu, Electrode, or Electabuzz. Like Lieutenant Surge will be good in the situation where they add an evolved form of Electabuzz, where you could put extra energy on Electabuzz and then evolve them to get, go there. Or if they add a really good Raichu, but like right now the Raichu sucks. And this can't be used on Pikachu, which ironically might make him better if he could actually be used on Pikachu instead of Raichu. Brock has the same issue. Golem is a stage 2 Pokemon. It's so hard to get Golem out. And even like once you put in that much effort to get Golem out, I'm just kind of like, the payoff doesn't feel like it's there. It's good, but it's only speeding you up by 1 turn for 4 energy, and then he kills himself over 3 attacks anyway if they deal even 1 point of damage to him. And so this is actually better on Onix. But Onix is good, but it is a 110 with a 70. I mean, it's good. It's definitely good on Onix, but like sometimes if they just have a good EX Pokemon, like it just isn't quite enough for me, I don't think. Like it's still Onix with Brock is still worse than Pikachu with nothing, Pikachu is hitting for 90, Onix is hitting with more HP for less energy. He's hitting for 70 with less HP, and you need a supporter to try to keep up with it. So I think these are kind of weak right now. I do want to give a shout out to Blaine. I actually do think that this, even though it is specific, I do think plus 30 damage is enough that is definitely enough to make the difference between killing something in 1 attack. Especially if it normally would take, it looks like it'll take 3 attacks. You hit them once and they're expecting to survive 1 more attack, so they don't use their potion. And then suddenly you could Blaine and instantly kill it. And now you're completely screwing up their plan. This is like a super surprising card. It won't always make the difference, but I think Blaine is going to make a cut in any fire deck for sure.
The other thing I want to point to there is you have 3 options, right? Not just 2, you have 3 options. One is a basic, and then the other 2 are stage 1. So you have Ninetales and Rapidash. So I like having more options. Like, I think it would be too powerful if it could add 30 to any fire card, so like
Yes.
you can't do that. So I think it's rather balanced, and it's a good card. If you're playing any of those 3 Pokemon, you want that in the deck. I lost my train of thought with the trainers. Oh, Erica. So I don't believe you have Erica, but the grass trainer, she's extremely powerful, and she's just going to open up a lot of possibilities for grass. So healing for 50, and of course, if you hit 2 of these, that's 100 over the course of a game. If you have an EX, and I don't even know who this would be best with because it's just such a blanket good card, but we've talked about Execute EX, something that like almost everybody gets access to early in the game, and when you have 160 HP, and now you really have 210 HP, in a way, right? Not one-shot wise, but if you're going to get hit twice, now you got to deal 210. And if I drew both of them, now you get to deal 260. That's a lot of damage.
Yeah, I think with like a character like, I'm actually looking here, Vileplume. Vileplume only does 80 damage, but he puts it with 140 HP, he puts your opponent to sleep. Like, that now they have to get through the sleep, and then they're gonna have to get through the healing, and then they're gonna have to try to get through the sleep again and again. Like, Vileplume feels like a tank if you have Erica with you. Like, it's even if you get unlucky and they instantly break out of the sleep, you still have like effectively 240 HP. A lot of these Pokemon are self-healing. I don't feel like it's particularly OP because I feel like a lot of the healing is going to go to waste. But I mean, it's overall, like you said, just a generically good card. We do got to move on from the meta. Is there any last minute things you think that are extremely powerful that we got to shout out? Besides, obviously, Professor's research, like Pokeball, we already talked about, I think.
We have to go a tier down, so I think we covered like some of the most OP cards in the game, or at least the ones that we've seen, because we don't have a full collection.
This is something I want to talk about. Do you think multicolor decks like Dragonite or other decks that just use good stuff in 2 different colors, you can go up to 3, but let's start with just 2 colors. Do you think that's viable in the current base set, or do you think that's just going to be too inconsistent?
I think it's a little bit too inconsistent. I have played against 3 Dragonite decks so far, and I beat all of them with a lot of ease. It's unfortunate that the only multicolor deck that encourages you to play multicolor is a stage 2, because it's just going to be a slower deck. So if you play a higher tempo, you're just going to have a huge advantage.
I mean, Draco Meteor is kind of an insanely cool attack and insanely powerful, because it does 200 damage, but it's kind of all over the place. But I think this card's really good. But it's a stage 2, it's 4 energy, requires 2 different color energy types. I mean, you're paying for that premium. Also, does he count as a dragon Pokemon, or does he count as a water and a lightning Pokemon? For the sake of like for Misty,
as a dragon, so like you can't use Misty on him. You have to manually play all 4 of those energies, so it takes 4 turns to set up. And then of course, when you kill him, that's a ton of tempo gone, right?
He does have no weakness, which is not that big of a deal, but it is the only card I've seen with no weakness.
No, you're right. There is no weakness, but now that weakness is not times 2, it's only plus 20. That really just reads as, you know, in some situations he has 20 more HP.
Yeah, I mean, I just, right now, 2-color decks seem too inconsistent. The only way I see it working is if you're using something like Lightning and you're using a Magneton. Magneton has the ability to get added energy to himself every turn. It means like it doesn't really matter what energies you draw, he's always usable, but then you're kind of using this guy, and he's not really that good. If you have a way, if they add a card that allows you to move energy from one of your Pokemon to another one of your Pokemon, this is going to completely change the viability of dual color decks. Right now, I just don't feel like there's enough support to outweigh the randomness of it, where sometimes it's like, this is Magic, right? Sometimes it's just going to work out perfectly. You're running all basic lands and no dual color lands. Sometimes you're just going to get all the lands you need, all the colors you need at the right time, and it's going to work. But it's like, so many of your games you're going to lose just to not being able to use your Pokemon's attacks on the turns you want. If you have a Pokemon that requires 3 lightning and you get anything besides 3 lightning in your first 3 turns, suddenly you're now not using your good moves until turn 4, turn 5, you know. So I'm kind of with you. I don't think dual color decks are really viable unless there's something in this. I haven't seen every card, unless there's something in here that I haven't seen that does completely kind of warp dual colored around it. And I don't think Dragonite's it, unless he has a specific trainer or support card that puts energy on him, you know.
And I don't believe he does. So it's like, he's the best reason you have to do it. Now, you can just take good stuff from 2 colors and combine them, but as we know, a lot of the good stuff is triple of their own color. So like you said, you're going to hit a lot of like rough land drop kind of things. And at the end of the day, until we figure out exactly how the weighted portion works and on what turns you're going to get what energy, I don't really feel comfortable playing multicolor decks.
All right, so let's go ahead and try to end on, we're going to jump through these last few topics here. So first, let's talk about the things that we dislike, and then we're going to go into our favorite polls, and then we'll do a quick account overview. So what are the negatives about this game? What are the things you think they need to improve on? Things you think that they've kind of failed at?
There's only one thing that I'm worried about. I would just, call it more of a worry, which is if you play this game for 12 hours straight, you can complete all of the content in the game.
Yes.
You will need to wait to open more packs, but like there's not really a reason to play other than the joy and fun of the game. I know later on ranked will come out. I know there will be events, there will be other reasons to do things, but currently here in New Zealand, there just is no additional reason to play. I believe that will be fixed on launch, but if it's not,
I think you get 15 player experience for doing an online match versus another player, unless I'm wrong about that. Okay, so you get like, you could potentially grind out levels by playing all day, but it's very
you also have to win.
Small. Yeah. Oh, you do have to win.
You do have to win.
Okay, so you have a very, very small incentive that's almost not there to play after you complete the content, other than the joy of the game. But yeah, I kind of hope they add honestly, I kind of wish the dailies didn't get done so fast. I mean, I do it by mistake. I finished there's only 3 daily missions you got to do. I accidentally do them when I log in. It's like they're all done. I don't even know what they are yet. Yeah, I kind of hope also like that they add more content, repeatable content that's fun to do, that has some rewards. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's a card game. Like, I'm gonna play it and just have fun with it because it's fun. But I know a lot of people that are maybe more collection oriented aren't going to engage with the battles as much unless there is a incentive to do so.
And Marvel has done a great job with the weekly missions and stuff. I would love to see some weekly missions and following their kind of model.
Yeah, weekly missions or having daily missions that kind of unlock it. So, like your daily missions reset every 6 hours or something. It's like every 6 hours you get another mission you could do or something like that. Okay, so what is your favorite card that you've pulled so far? Your favorite pulls? I'll see if I have it. I probably. Oh wait. Oh, I know. If you send me a picture, I'll edit it here in the video and I'll show it here.
My Crown Charizard, right? So it's one of the 3 rarest cards in the game, I believe. And I wish it was Crown Pikachu because I've been trying to get Pikachu so bad. I do think Charizard is the worst out of the 3 of them as far as playability wise, but it's by far my best card. But it's not my favorite looking card.
It's so hard when you're a stage 2 Pokemon versus 2 basics to be the best card. You know, it's like, what are you gonna do? I know he's cool. All right, my favorite card. I have 2. I'm going to nominate one, then I'm going to show you my real one that I forgot that I got yesterday. So my favorite purely from art is going to be this Alakazam here. This is maybe the coolest art I've seen. This is Mob Psycho 100 vibes. Like I love the way they do this art. For me, feels like a psychedelic, psychic kind of vibe anyway. I know there's other characters with kind of this style, but I think Alakazam leans into this style perfectly. To me, it suits the personality. But I got a full art Japanese Cubone. This card,
wait, you can get Japanese cards?
you can get Japanese cards. I don't remember how, but it was a wonder pick. So you can collect cards from all other languages in the game. I think you have to maybe be in that region. You gotta move out of New Zealand, I think, to get to open packs of different stuff like that. But you can absolutely get Japanese cards. How freaking cool is that card?
That is awesome.
I'm actually like, I bet when trade comes out, like people will want to trade English cards for Japanese cards and stuff like that, just to get, even if they have a restriction on rarities that you could trade, like you can't just trade a crown jewel for a basic oddish, right? From just to discourage people from selling it in real life and then trading it for nothing in game. Even if they have a restriction on that, being able to trade like for like of just a different language, I think is going to be really cool. For, again, this adds the flair is one thing, but this adds so much texture to your collection. Like, your collection is going to be so much different. If you have a binder of your favorite Japanese full art cards, man, I can't wait to see collections in a year. They're going to be so fun to look at. All right, so finally, I want to how much have you spent in the game?
I bought the pass, which I believe is 10 USD.
Okay, and what's your collection at right now?
So as far as the stars, I have 13 of them, and I have 3 duplicates.
3 duplicates, okay. So I'm at 155 diamond cards, and I'm at 12 star cards. However, I didn't know different cards came in different packs, so I've only opened Mewtwo cards. So I have a lot of duplicates, including 2 of the 3-star Mewtwo. I got 2 of these. So,
which is a gorgeous card.
It's a great card. The whole like scene that it plays is really cool as well. It's one of the only cards that I've seen that evokes emotion in a way like this. Like the Pikachu card, like you get to see everything's cool. This is him literally escaping from like slavery, essentially, you know, when being a test dummy. This is like, there's a lot of vibes that this card makes you feel that I love. But
absolutely. And my diamond collection is at well, I don't know what the diamond collection is, but my overall collection is 173 with the combined. So
you might be a little bit ahead of me. I opened a lot of Mewtwo packs, not knowing. I thought that only the EX card or the alternate star cards. I didn't realize base level cards were restricted to packs. So I've spent about $50, by the way, and I'm about to do a video where I drop 720 Pokegold after this, just pulling packs. Thank you, YouTube, for paying for that. Not sponsored, but it's like my YouTube money will just pay for it, so I don't gotta worry about it. Finally, we have our last segment called Pocket Poll, which is where we get you involved with Team Pocket. We want you to, if you have any questions that you want to ask us, or you have about the game, or if you want to correct us on anything you think we were dumb about, leave it in the comments down below. You can also join my Discord and kind of just @ me, and I'll add it to the questions, and then me and Laliette here will take a look at it, and we will talk about it next week. This is the first one that we've done. I don't know how consistently we're going to do it, but there will be not so many topics in the future ones, but there's a lot we want to cover when the game is still brand new. So I think we're going to try to narrow it down to like 4 or 5 like topics, like maybe a segment, main topic, segment, outro is kind of a little more structured, but we had just wanted to talk. We're so excited. We wanted to talk about a lot in this game. So we'll try to keep it a little under an hour going forward, but anything else, Laliette, from you?
No, I mean, I think it's time to say the thing.
All right. Well, this has been the Team Pocket podcast, and Team Pocket is blasted off again.
Blasting off again.
Platypus on the rise, watch the views.